Women suck at communication, which results in women feeling so unheard, so misunderstood, so taken for granted, which leads to a shitload of building these giant walls of resentment that slowly eats at our happiness, and it sabotages our personal relationships, all because we cannot communicate. We're going to break it down why mastering communication is non-negotiable. We've got to get past this bullshit so you can be anything and do everything you desire. Okay, I heard this amazing quote. Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments, which suggests that when we have specific expectations, specifically unspoken ones, on how others should behave or how events should unfold, we're setting ourselves up for massive disappointment and resentment. The key word here that we want to pay attention to is the unspoken. And therein lies the problems with women. We don't say what we mean, right? The words just sort of live in our heads and they stay there. And it's so frustrating. I get why, because I was so well versed in this. I mean, God forbid we rock the boat, right? And personally, I know for myself, I got really good at shutting her down, like shutting my voice. When I tell you, my therapist had such hard work with me for many years, many moons ago, because I bottled everything up. I just sort of stuffed it in there and kept it there. It turns out that I was programmed this way, right? To sip it. Unbeknownst to me, I had to do a lot of deep work and go back to my younger years. And here's what I learned, that not a single person, not one of us, now that I work with women, none of us escape the labels that were put on us as children. So my labels got placed on really early. The quiet one, the shy one, the nice one, the not going to create any problems. I mean, being 4 out of 6 kids, my voice definitely got lost in it all. So I never really learned to use my words. And this happened really early on. I just learned to shut her down. Add another layer to my childhood where we had some really rough years. The childhood trauma certainly did not escape me or my family. So you pile that on, for me, brought on like a lot of embarrassment because we had so many financial hardships and my need to protect my family that I got very good at pretending. And part of pretending is not really saying what you mean. So I went inward. Later on, I learned, if you're into like energy work, that my throat chakra was so closed up. It became a real issue as an adult. It all makes sense why I do so much writing. Hence why I can get lost with a journal and pen. Hence why I feel really safe, not with the spoken word, but with the written word. And it all makes sense to me. Clearly, I've worked through that and I now use my words very well. But it's crazy to me how many years I spent just living in my head. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is if you also suck at communication, it's very likely not your fault. The problem with holding it in is that we become so resentful what we think other people aren't doing or what they should be doing that it just really robs us of our happiness, right? But I've got to tell you, ladies, we're in control. And yet, once again, we give away our power and we're making it about everyone else, which is not true. Can you see that in me talking through this, that you may not be responsible for the way you communicate, meaning maybe you were taught a certain ways, but the way you communicate now, it's definitely causing your unhappiness. So really spend time, acknowledge the reasons, identify your patterns, and really pay attention. And then let's work on doing better and being better, because I think we can. If you're tired of living in your head and building up resentment and you want to join the big kids table, these are some of my tips for you. Number 1, no one is a mind reader. I say this all the time, but it bears repeating. Say it, use your words, and just mean it. Don't worry about how it comes off or how other people are going to react or protecting other people's feelings. Say it. Number 2, get out of your head. Like seriously, stop creating these scenarios in your head. How many scenarios have you created that are just crazy? This is why I think there's a writer in all of us, because we can get super creative and make up a lot of shit. Subjective truth, meaning your truth, is your personal truth. Therefore, the facts or events are interpreted from your perspective, which instinctively always make you the hero in the story. And that's not always the truth. Okay, another tip I have for you. How about you try growing up? How much longer are you going to be blaming XYZ or whatever happened on life? How about you just step up and say, I don't like it when people do it to me. I don't like when people are passive aggressive with me. I don't like when people tell me or make assumptions that I should know what's in their mind. Yeah, so don't do it to them. Another tip, look in the mirror. Always be accountable. Always own your shit. Really pay attention to how you are communicating, what you're doing. It's so much easier to say the hard things now and get through it then hold it in and let it build. That never works. So audit your own communication style. It's really, really important that you do this. But here's the really, really good news. We can fix this. We can improve our communication skills. It's doable. It does require practice. It happened overnight because a lot of this is patterns that we are used to doing. So we're just going to have to reprogram ourselves and be really mindful how we do this. Okay, you recognize that maybe your patterns aren't serving you. How do you move forward? It's always about, again, pause, reflect, and now you're ready to redirect. So what do you do with this information? Well, the first thing you have to do is you're going to have to listen, really listen. You're going to have to spend time asking questions, leaning in, getting curious, seek to understand. You're going to have to get so good at listening without getting defensive. And can you listen without getting your feelings hurt? Removing your feelings is the hardest thing to do from a conversation. I'm going to warn you right now. But if you can practice this, I promise you, it does get easier. It's almost like you have to remove yourself as the person and just be like a third person in the room listening. Another thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use your words. A big girl, grown up words like no, thank you, yes, please. This is how I'm feeling. You know what I'm saying? No insults, no passive aggressive. Like say it and mean it and be done with it. Here's another tip. When you find yourself simmering in the resentment, I need you to sort of pause and say, okay, ask yourself 2 questions that are really important. Number 1 is you have to ask yourself, what about this situation? What about it is bothering you so much? And then the second question I want you to ask yourself, what has to change for me not to feel this way? Try to really hone in on here. It's never the first answer. So keep digging and pulling the layers back. It almost never is about the other person. Another tip, you've got to be really prepared to be wrong. You're going to have to get ready to eat humble pie. When we start communicating like properly, what happens is you start to actually use your words. You start to actually listen and you quickly discover that you had it all wrong. The scenarios that you had built in your head, the resentment, the anger, all of it was completely misplaced because you lived in your head and created scenarios that just weren't true. You got to be ready to be wrong. Another tip I have is please stick to I statements. People have a hard time with this one. I promise you, as you work towards your communication skills, stick to I. How do you feel? I feel this way. I. The minute you introduce other characters, you lose credibility. Not your husband, not your sister, not your whatever, not your boss, not your colleague. No, I don't care. Tell me about how you feel at this moment and what you need. There we can really have a good conversation. And finally, yes, communicating the hard stuff is hard and it takes work and it does get easier. You know what isn't? Communicating the good stuff. Give out the compliments. Say the kind things. If your husband did something great for you or your partner, like tell them that. Say, hey, thanks so much. I see you. Thanks for hooking me up. Or if your girlfriend walks in and she's looking all gorgeous, tell her. Or if your bestie did something amazing, say it. Like, don't be holding all those compliments in. Like, communicate all the good stuff too. That's really important too. And we forget to communicate the good stuff too. That's just as important. And while you're here, you should really listen to this one on holding space, because this one will give you a different perspective on what it means to just get in the mud with people and listen.